Hey, welcome back to the Okayest Cook Podcast, everybody. The original crew was having a really hard time getting together, so I'm back in the studio once again, but I got a really cool guest lined up today, and I'm not going to sit here and ramble. I don't like hearing myself chat, so I'm just going to bring him straight in. We have Mr. Adam Berkelman. We should have talked about this before.
Oh yeah, Berkelmans. Yeah,
Berkelmans. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Recipe developer, cook, Harvesting Nature contributor, co-owner. What's your role over there?
Officially, I'm managing editor over at Harvest Nature, but I play lots of different.
Got a couple hats.
Wear lots of different hats. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So including like camp cook and planner and recipe developer and managing editor. So
Nice.
yeah, a bunch of different things.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you joining us here today. Hopefully, we're gonna glean some solid information from you.
Cool. Thanks for having me on.
You obviously know more than we do about the cooking thing. You know, if you've got recipe developer in your title there, so we trust you. Well, yeah. Do you want to just give us a quick introduction, like maybe a little bit more about you, kind of a tiny bit about your history, and just like why should we listen to you? Like, what are your credentials?
Yeah, sure. So, I was born in Ontario, Southern Ontario, in London, which is kind of just north of Detroit, to give you a sense. And I spent my time now in between, living back and forth between Ontario and Quebec in Canada. I was just obsessed with food my whole life. Started cooking solo by age 7 and cooking full family meals by 12 alone.
Jeez.
And just was always thinking about food. I always had it on my mind. Simultaneously, I was always really into the outdoors as well and into nature and conservation. Nice. And had a bit of a path open up in front of me, or a fork in the road, I should say, in high school, whether I should go follow the chef thing or go through the outdoor route. And after a lot of soul searching, I decided to take the outdoor route because I loved being outside all the time. And as a chef, you don't really get to be outside all the time.
Yeah.
And I figured I could be outside all the time at work, and then I could come home and cook. So I decided to choose that route, which was, I think, pretty wise for my 16-year-old self or whatever.
Seriously.
Yeah. And then continued just to work a whole bunch of different types of jobs. I moved around the country a whole bunch. I worked in all sorts of different jobs, including like backcountry ranger, canoe guide, whole animal butchery, organic farmer, riparian restoration, trails technician. So I just it's kind of like
a couple industries.
Yeah, it's kind of all over. A little bit in the food, a little bit in the outdoor industry still, but never in a kitchen really. So I never went to school to be a chef or worked in kitchens, which gives me a pretty different outlook on cooking than a lot of the people I know, I think.
Oh yeah.
It leaves me without some pretty hefty experience that a lot of people have, but also leaves me open to interpreting things in a different way, which is kind of cool. Eventually, COVID interrupted my life as it did to everyone else, and my job where I was working at the time kind of folded, and I was left thinking, kind of ready for something new. I wanted to pursue food more, and I still didn't want to work in a kitchen. I just didn't ever really want to work in a kitchen. I wanted to be outside all the time. So I decided to start the Intrepid Eater, which is kind of my brand, my platform.
Yes.
And I started, creating recipes, sharing them online, writing about food, teaching people about food. Quickly discovered that when I posted a recipe that had something that I hunted or fished or foraged for, it got way more attention than if it was just like a regular domestic meal.
Really?
So I kind of followed that niche and developed that more and more. And I thought that was pretty okay because it meant that I just had to spend more time hunting and fishing and foraging.
So, shucks.
Really hard work for me. So I kind of followed that and started making connections and fell in with the Harvesting Nature guys, Justin Townsend, and they accepted me in. And slowly but surely, I worked my way up the ladder or whatever until I was, managing editor and cooking and sometimes butcher instructor as well at the camps we run. So we run camps where you learn how to hunt, shoot, butcher, process, and cook wild game.
Yeah.
So we run currently a wild pig camp in Texas and a snow goose camp in Missouri. Yeah, so then I've been doing that. I've been busy developing recipes for outdoor magazines and other publications, and yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Dude, that's so awesome. I love the fact that you just like jumped in, like skip the kitchen, let's go. Kind of reminds me of me a little bit. I'm a freelance photographer, and I studied photography in school, but not business. And upon graduation, I was like, hey, how hard can starting a business be? Let's just go. Jumped in head first, and somehow we survived. Somehow we made it. I'm still self-employed, so I guess I did it the right way. But man, it was a struggle.
Yeah, so, I have a lot less hair than when I started. I gotta say.
Yeah, my gray is showing up in my beard mostly. Yeah. So I keep it short. But no, that's super awesome. I mean, super encouraging that you have like zero training, because none of us do either. Like, we love food, we love eating, and we're getting better at cooking. That's the whole point of this show, is just to learn and grow more. And again, just the fact that you've got this notoriety now, at least in my opinion, that you're known for your food and your cooking and your recipe developing, and it's all just self-taught, right? And just kind of experiencing life as it comes, and just doing it yourself.
Yeah, you really develop your own kind of fingerprint in the game when you don't have the culinary school or your people who've influenced your food. Like I've just had to do it myself, so I've developed a pretty unique approach. Maybe not everyone would agree it's the right approach, but I like it. Other people seem to like it, so
yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's cool.
What's the thing? Like, you do you. Like, we have enough of that cookie cutter template people out there. Like, we don't need more of that. And wherever that comes from, whether it's school or just working on a line somewhere in the back of a restaurant, we have enough of that. So I'm glad that you're doing you, and you're doing it your way. I think it's awesome. Just keep on doing it. Never go to school.
Yeah.
Listeners, follow your gut. If you feel like you need to go to school, go to school. There's nothing wrong with going to school, but we're here to say that you can do it by yourself as well. Well, you mentioned foraging in a little bit about what you do. I want to dive into that, but real quick, let's talk about notable meals. I'm trying to get better at this consistency within the episodes, and notable meals I've been forgetting lately. So have you eaten anything really cool lately, or have you seen anything on the socials or wherever that you're just dying to try?
Well, I made a meal the other night that really stuck out to me, and it was basically just a seared chicken thigh in a hedgehog mushroom sauce.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, and it was just simple, delicious, quick. The hedgehog mushrooms are wild. That I went and foraged them in the woods. They're an incredibly easy one to identify without chance of killing yourself. The chicken thigh, generally I try to like hunt and fish my own meat or grow it myself, or have some hand in it, butcher it myself or something. But sometimes I'm tired and I go to the grocery store and buy some cheap ass chicken and
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because I'm not super hardcore about it, but it did show. I was thinking about it a lot this meal, because when we'll talk about foraging more, I assume, but a lot of people kind of consider it to be this thing. If you're foraging for wild food, you have to make these wild dishes, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. Like, I made this combination of domestic and wild with some easy ingredients, and you can just become a forager or hunter or fisherman or angler, and just start bringing in small amounts of things and then incorporating them into your day-to-day meals, rather than having this like overwhelming umbrella of knowledge that you have to learn, and you have to like create a whole meal out of all these wild things, and that can be very overwhelming. Where if you just incorporate a little bit into it, it's way easier to get into adding wild food to your life. So I've been thinking a lot about that recipe, and just how simple and easy and extra delicious it was, because you could make this with cremini mushrooms or white button or whatever you buy from the grocery store. But God, it was so much better with the addition of the wild ingredient.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we'll definitely dive into that here in a second. One of the dishes I did recently was I bought a quarter of a cow not too long ago, and it came with beef short ribs. And honestly, like, I'm still trying to learn all the cuts. I mean, obviously ribs kind of made sense to me, but like I had no idea what I was really getting into when I opened the package. And it's these 4 just blocks. Gosh, they're probably 3-4 inches square and just like almost half fat, half meat. I mean, it looked incredible, but I was like, what am I going to do with this thing? So just threw it on the smoker. I was looking through my pantry, trying to find something else to go with it. One of our other episodes is all about sides, and we basically just told the listeners kind of that we focus on the protein way too much. And often, I say we, I mean just like the 4 of us, the Okayest Cooks.
I think everyone does, really.
It could be true, yeah. It could be universal, but like the sides are just like an afterthought. And so as this meat was smoking, I was like, all right, what can I do? Like, I'm going to intentionally try and make a good side. So I got up my grits. I knew I had some good cheese in the fridge, so I made some cheesy grits. And then as I'm looking through the fridge, I found a little tub of leftover sweet corn that I bought just the other day. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to chuck that in the grits too. And just cook that all up, put the ribs on top of that. And oh my gosh, that was a great combo.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Just that little bit of sweet, kind of crunchy corn in the grits, like, was game changer to me. Like, I'm starting to really appreciate texture within food, and just kind of that creamy grit with a little crunchy sweet corn, and then like I don't know how you would describe the ribs, but I mean, it was just fall apart, just kind of gelatinous and fatty, and just stick to your ribs, tasty good, and oh man, I think it turned out all right.
So good.
Yes. Yes. But on the topic of foraging, I think that would be a phenomenal dish to add mushrooms. I don't know if I would put them like in the grits, but probably like a sauteed or pan-seared.
I've done mushroom grits in the past that turned out really nicely. Yeah,
they don't get like too slimy or.
No, yeah, you just have to make sure they've released their liquids basically.
Okay.
Beforehand.
Do you just do that with like in a bowl with some salt, or do you just like fry them to get rid of that moisture?
Like a saute until when often mushrooms will kind of release their water and then it will dissipate and then they'll start browning. Just get them to that stage. Okay. And then you can mix them into the cooked grits.
Okay.
Or you could do like a topping as well, like grits in a layer and then like a layer of mushrooms and then the meat on top or something too. So
that's what I was thinking, more towards on top. But yeah, definitely. I think sweating them out and then adding them to the grits. I was just picturing throwing a raw mushroom in with the grits. I'm like, that might be kind of gross.
Yeah, not so much.
Avoid that. Well, yeah. On the topic of mushrooms, though, let's dive into foraging.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm sure it makes sense to a lot of people, but how would you describe foraging to my 4-year-old, if you had to like really, really break it down?
So I would say foraging is finding food where it's growing freely.
Yeah.
Let's say. I hesitate saying in the wild because you don't have to go deep into the wild to forage.
That is true.
You can forage in the urban settings, you can forage in rural settings, you can forage deep in the forest. So I hesitate to say wild.
We will put a caveat saying where you're allowed. So maybe don't go tromping around your neighbor's backyard without permission. Make sure you're in an area where you're allowed to be walking. We'll call that the wild. It could be 10 steps from your porch. It could be 10 miles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so somewhere where you're allowed to be, and that's one of the tenets of foraging is to resist the temptation to trespass. Even if something looks pretty tasty on the other side of that fence.
Yes, the grass is always greener, but we'll respect
foraging. I started foraging when I was a teenager, or actually even younger than that. I had a kind of a distant family friend took me on a nature walk, and I was so into nature when I was a child, and he picked some wintergreen. I don't know if you've ever had wintergreen before.
Just the gum.
Okay, yeah. So this basically where that flavor comes from. Okay. It's a small plant that grows close to the ground. You can chew on the leaves, and you get that exact gum wintergreen taste.
Nice.
And the little red berries also taste like that a little bit.
Really?
So he gave me that. I don't know how old it was, like 6 or 7, but it blew my mind. I was like, whoa,
Nice.
you just picked that off the ground in the forest, and it has this like gum flavor, and it has, I don't know, my mind just started turning and turning. And I really got into, I was reading books about foraging, like Tom Brown junior books and anything I could get from the library. And then I started developing, I grew up in the suburbs, so we weren't like out in the woods or anything. But as I got older and became a young teenager, I had these routes I would take to my friends' houses, and they would like be circuitous around like way past where I'd have to go because I had discovered all these little foraging bits. So like, I could pick berries here. There were strawberries growing there. There's raspberries growing there. There was a pear tree that like went over the fence onto the path that I took that I could, knock a couple pears off. And I had these routes to my friends' houses that were full of things to forage for.
Dude, I'm picturing that family circus comic with it's the kid and the dotted line that just goes all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, there was like, I wasn't doing it in the forest when I started doing it. So you don't need to, I know people think when they think of foraging, they're probably thinking like a basket and you're deep in the woods somewhere, probably European woods, not
Some
North
Red
American
Riding
woods
Hood
even.
situations.
Yeah. But it doesn't.
You're just carrying them in your shirt, just going to your friend's house.
Oh yeah. I've definitely used my hood and my hat and dog bags and anything. Using my shirt to carry stuff home, I've done some ridiculous things like that.
I'm also picturing like your mother doing, or whoever's going to do your laundry, like you throw your pants in the wash and it comes out all full of raspberry stains. And
oh yeah.
finding whole mushrooms in the washing machine.
Definitely. That's still happening, by the way.
Yes. Oh, dude, that's awesome. I guess I do have like a little bit of a foraging background. One of the apartments I lived in straight out of college had an awesome pear tree, and just like on our property right there. And regretfully, like I didn't eat as much of those as I should have. I mean, this tree was like the limbs were cracking down. It was just loaded. We definitely had our regulars. I remember, his name was Zen, I think, or it was one of our mailmen. Just like consistent mailman our entire life. He would always stop by the pear tree and, pick a few buckets of them. And
that's awesome.
Now, like, I just turned 40. I'm like starting this cooking podcast. I'm like kicking myself for not using those pears.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, they like, I see fruit all over the place in the city, just rotting in people's yards. They don't do, like, people have a strange thing where they feel uncomfortable with wild food or food growing outside the grocery store, like where they would go spend $10 on a bag of pears, but would be hesitant to pick the pears in their backyard.
Yeah.
Say they bought a house with a pear tree and they're like, I don't know if I can eat those. There's a weird distance between those two things. And that's part of the message I like to try to get across, is that to break that down a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yep. You're one of our former guests, Jason Michael Thomas. He's got an urban farm here in Indianapolis. He did a post not too long ago about just, why are people scared to eat fruit that's growing? It might have a couple extra brown spots on it. Yeah, there might be a bug crawling on top of it, but it's real food. It's good food. It's most of the time it's free food if it's just sitting there. So why not?
It's more healthy. It tastes better. And if I do see a bug, it's
peak ripeness. Like it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
But it is. It is intimidating.
Bug on this on the produce or on a fruit or something, then that just means that it wasn't sprayed too. So it's sometimes nice to see a little bug on there, even if it's a little icky.
That's a good point of view.
Yeah. So what were we gonna say?
My dad growing up would always say like, if you find a bug in your food, it's like, it's just extra protein. So don't worry about it.
It's not gonna hurt you.
Yes. So how do we like separate the good from the bad? You mentioned a couple books earlier. Like, do you have like some solid recommendations? And I know it's like super, super regional. We're here in Indianapolis. You're in Canada. Is that right?
Yeah.
Somewhere up north. It's obviously very regional. So we're not necessarily going to find the same things you're going to find. But do you have like some solid books you might recommend people look at? Like, or solid websites that are...
My first warning for people would be I think we talked about this a little bit in the past, or just when we were messaging each other, but there's a lot of AI books coming out right now.
I heard,
There's a lot of interest in foraging, especially after COVID, and there's a lot of AI books coming out taking advantage of people. They're cheap, they're plentiful on Amazon. They are full of nonsense and can kill you.
Seriously.
The information in them can kill you. So my first thing I want to say is be wary of any books. Like, if you're going to buy a book, research the author, see if they've done other books, see if they've actually written this book or if it's just AI. Because you don't want some AI book telling you that this mushroom's okay, and then you feed it to your family and kill your whole family. It's not
seriously
worth it. Yeah. But in terms of good books, you definitely want to find something for your own region. Region being basically like the Northeast, the Southeast, Central, Southwest, and Northwest.
Okay.
You can basically break it down into those and be pretty happy with that. And then in terms of an all-around great author, Sam Thayer.
Okay.
He's got 3 or 4 books. He's just the master of North American foraging. And
how do you spell that last name?
Thayer.
Okay.
Sam Thayer. They're just the best books out there. He does his research. Part of the problem that happened with foraging books and mushroom books, but mostly foraging books, is that there was some bad information that got put into a book, in the 1930s or 40s or 50s, and that information just kept getting passed from book to book to book. So many authors were just kind of regurgitating information in a new way.
So citing this book, but nobody's like fact checking too much.
Exactly. And Sam Thayer personally went and fact checked every single thing and tried it in every single season and made himself sick a few times doing so. And he really did the legwork, and you can't get better than that. Yeah. So if anyone wants to get into it and wants a book, just go Sam Thayer. Then find one he's like kind of central near you. I think he's in like Minneapolis area.
Okay.
So he's, that's pretty good because it's central. He's going to overlap with some of your regionality. And then I would say try to find a trustworthy book for your region. And then most foraging books are split between wild edibles and mushrooms. There's not too many books that cover both.
Okay.
So you're probably going to need a book on, the wild edibles and plants, and then a book on mushrooms.
Gotcha.
I don't have a mushroom book to really recommend. I find they're not great, the ones that I've gotten. And you're much better off going with there's a lot of Facebook groups with really intelligent, scientific mushroom-minded people who can really help you out. There's some etiquette involved. If you find a mushroom, so often see a picture of someone like with a mushroom halfway through the mouth and like, can I eat this? What is this? Like, that is not the way to go about it.
What is that? There might be like it might be from a book or a movie where like, if you lick it and your tongue goes numb, then stay away. But if it hasn't gone numb for a half hour, you might be okay.
Yeah.
It's delicate.
It's risky. Yeah.
Jeez.
So I would say your best bet for mushrooms, which are generally a little more like you have to get into it more than the wild edibles, just because there's so many toxic ones.
That's pretty much the main reason that I haven't like avoided foraging. Like I've dabbled here and there, but specifically with the mushrooms, I've been a little bit more hesitant to do that.
Yeah. Your best bet is to find someone who knows what they're talking about. Nature, there's mycological groups, nature groups in nearly every big city, and finding someone to show you around a little bit at first could just take a lot of that away.
Yeah, I've got a good buddy who's shown me around the woods a little bit, and specifically morels. Like he's really kind of put me on some good morel patches, which that's unheard of. Who shares a morel patch? But,
that's a lucky.
Thank you, sir. You know who you are. Yeah. But he also showed me the pheasant back, and that was actually a pretty tasty one that I was really a big fan of.
Yeah, those were really good.
Yeah. Outside of that and ramps, that's pretty much the extent of my foraging knowledge and ability.
So you got the spring covered.
So basically turkey season. When I'm out in the woods and stuff's actually growing.
Yeah. Yes. The good news is that there's a whole bunch of mushrooms that are very safe to forage, hard to misidentify, very few to no toxic lookalikes,
Awesome.
and they're very striking. So if you teach yourself a couple ones like that, and you don't just go look for them, you learn about them. Say like chicken of the woods is a good example. Chicken of the woods is a bracket fungus, so it grows on a tree, like off a tree, kind of like the pheasant backs, and it's bright orange and yellow. It's unmistakable. It doesn't have gills; it has pores.
Okay.
So if you find a big orange mushroom growing on a tree with pores, it's going to be chicken of the woods. Having said that, I still want you to go and research that more and not just go off what I'm saying. But there's nothing you can really mistake it with. So all you need to know is like whether it's good to eat in terms of how old it is or fresh. But that's a super easy mushroom. You can see it from like half a mile away because it's bright orange. It cooks up like chicken, so it's really easy to cook too. So there's like really good beginner mushrooms that you can start off with, that you're not like comparing 3 mushrooms and one of them was going to kill you and they all look the same, you know. Those exist, and you don't want to deal with those mushrooms. There's enough that you can
right
keep
off the bat.
busy. You can keep yourself busy with like easy to identify ones. And then you can join some good mycological groups on social media, take pictures of the ones you found, send them into the group, and ask the experts their opinion on the ID. And
now, in your knowledge, is it? I mean, they're poisonous if you ingest them, right? But like picking them is not necessarily going to hurt you unless you like pick them and like start licking your fingers, maybe. But
even that, it'd be hard. It would have to be a pretty toxic mushroom. Some people take the most deadly mushrooms in the world, chew on them, and spit them out, and you don't get sick. You actually have to like ingest it and have it be digested for it to react. I don't recommend doing that. I don't do that. Right. But it's possible. So, I mean,
I guess all that to say is like, if you're in the woods, you find this mushroom, you think it's good to go ahead and maybe harvest that mushroom. Take the picture, do some fact checking, and at home, maybe the next day, once you find out that it is safe to eat, you're good to go. Like,
and honestly, I brought home mushrooms and threw them out, and brought them home and threw them out until I felt comfortable. Like, it's better to be playing the long game with the mushrooms and making sure you have what you think you have. Being 100% of the identification of it. And then another good thing to do is to eat a small amount of it. Once you're sure you're ready to cook it, eat a small amount, because even non-toxic mushrooms can have bad effects on people. Just in terms of gastrointestinal distress.
Just food you're not used to predominantly.
Exactly.
And there could also be bugs on the mushroom, you know, bugs you can see and bugs you can't see. So
exactly. And
make sure you're washing and cleaning.
Exactly. There's mushrooms that 10 people can eat and be fine, and one person is going to get a stomach ache from. So just start small. Don't eat like a whole massive mushroom meal out of this thing you just found until you know that your body can handle it.
So that same buddy that showed me his morel patch also found out the hard way that he can only eat so many morels. Before some bad things start happening.
Morels are one of them that they don't agree with everybody, even though they're one of the more popular wild mushrooms.
He knows his limit.
Exactly.
Maybe that's why he shared his patch with me, because he could only have so many. Yes.
So some people might say, well, what's the point then? Is it worth foraging for mushrooms if you have to go through this whole rigmarole to identify it, everything? And I would say most assuredly it is. They are more delicious than anything you've ever had from a grocery store. There's I could use the word magic, but I'm talking about normal edible mushrooms. There's a magic to it that's like the
not that kind of mushroom. Right?
Not that kind of magic, but the beauty of the mushroom, the wild taste, the taste that you've never experienced anything from the grocery store, different textures, just the excitement of finding them. I get the same amount of excitement finding a patch of mushrooms I've been looking for a year or two as I do hunting. So
I believe that
it can be very satisfying.
Dude, like I said, just the morel. Like I found like 3 in the wild, like truly all by myself, and like the phenomenal moments. Like a mushroom, like yes, so I get that 100%. But I mean, to your point, like it's mushrooms that you truly don't see in the store. Like how many stores sell morels? How many stores sell chicken of the woods or pheasant backs? Not very many. And
you're hard pressed to find a lot of them.
Yeah, and honestly, just like gardening, like take just a fresh garden tomato versus something you buy at the grocery store. The taste is just a million times different. And
I just had it for lunch. I just had a tomato sandwich for lunch out of my garden, and just it blows my mind every single time I do it.
So much better.
Yeah.
Again, it's going back to that episode with Jason Michael Thomas. Like you're eating this food at its peak. Like it's not sitting on a truck. It's not traveling and going somewhere and degrading or picking it way too early so you can transport it halfway across the country. You know, it's
exactly
real food in your backyard at its prime.
And back to mushrooms again, it like most of what's available in the grocery store, like you might find oysters if you're lucky. If you go to a really fancy grocery store like Italy or Whole Foods, you might find them like a maitake or a hen of the woods. But generally you're finding white button, cremini, and portobello mushrooms. And a lot of people don't realize that they're all the same mushroom at different stages of life.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so white button mushroom, they're just grown without light. They're generally smaller. You give a little bit of light to that and it turns brown, which is a cremini mushroom. You let it mature to full maturity and it opens up nice and large, and that is a portobello mushroom. And they're all the same agaricus variety. So even the mushrooms
like blew my mind a little bit.
They're all the same damn mushroom.
It's like that thing you posted about the peppers the other day, where it's like, oh, here's your jalapeno. If you just let it go red and then dry it, it's all of a sudden a chipotle. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I had no idea. Dude, that's super cool.
One of my favorite things is blowing my mind with all these crazy little things all the time.
Yes, I absolutely love it. Well, do you have anything else to share about mushrooms? I mean, the mushroom itself is its own topic. You could do a whole podcast on just mushrooms, but like in your neck of the woods, like what are you finding right now? The hedgehogs, was that a local mushroom?
Hedgehog's the local one. They're a really easy one because if you could picture the bottom side of a mushroom under the cap, you're going to either have gills, which you can see on like a white butter mushroom or a portobello, or pores, which you would find on your pheasant backs that you had. So there's just little dots rather than the gills.
Sure.
These hedgehog mushrooms are unique in the fact that they have little spines instead of gills or pores, and it resembles a hedgehog's back kind of thing.
Nice. I'm looking at your website right now, and I'm seeing a picture of it. So
so they're like, you can't really misidentify them, so they're really easy. Yeah. They're just kind of a smaller mushroom, similar to chanterelles, which are another amazing mushroom.
Yeah.
And so I've been finding lots of those, which is really fun. I've been finding some cool ones. There's I wouldn't recommend people go right for these if they're starting out, but I've been finding these milk caps. So there's indigo milk caps and saffron milk caps. When you cut them, they bleed like this latexy kind of
weird
liquid. And the indigo milk caps, it's like bright blue, like
no way,
neon blue. And the saffron ones, it's like neon orange, and they're just beautiful mushrooms.
Ooh, see, that's the kind of stuff that kind of creeps me out. Like if I start seeing my plants oozing something blue, I'm like, oh, that's got to be poisonous.
It's got to be poisonous, but it's not. So which is the cool thing about mushrooms, like how many neon blue things you get to eat.
I thought about that the other day. Who was I talking with? But like, yeah, how many blue foods are there? I think I was talking to my 4-year-old because he's obsessed with all things blue, and we're just trying to talk about like, oh, what can I eat that's blue? But I'll have to find one of these mushrooms for him. He'll freak out.
So like this time of year is actually probably the best for mushrooms in my region, anyways, like the Northeast. In the spring, you get the pheasant backs and morels. In the summer, you kind of get some chanterelles and other things, and then this time of the fall, all the other ones come out.
Nice.
So there's hundreds that you could forage. I know I'm confident of about 30 mushrooms that I can go into the woods and find and confidently eat now. That's been over the years. I've been developing one at a time, adding them on.
Yeah.
Once you get better at identification, you can really your skills increase exponentially. So once you develop those observation skills to see the mushroom in the woods, to identify it, to pick it out, you're looking for all the little things that can tell you what type of mushroom it is. Each one has a lot of different little if the cap is a certain way, the pores or the gills are a certain way. I find the more mushrooms you learn, it's easier and easier, and it just grows exponentially. So
nice.
So it's a pretty tough thing at first, and then it gets easier forever after. So yeah, definitely worth doing.
That's super cool. So what are you doing with your mushrooms? I mean, obviously you're cooking them, but like, do you just take like what you can use for the week, or are you like storing them long term? Like, and if you are, like how do you store these things? Like, do you dry them or freeze them or?
So I kind of do a few different things. Generally, I have this spot where I take my dog. So I go once or twice a week to this forest area, and I just wander around for a couple hours with my dog. And it's full of mushrooms all year. So I end up coming back sometimes with too many mushrooms because I can't help myself.
Yeah.
And my eyes are bigger than my stomach, and I have a hard time fitting them into my cooking schedule, especially if I'm making recipes for work. So sometimes I have to preserve them, and to do that, there's like sometimes it depends on which mushroom. Like some mushrooms are better one way than the other.
Sure.
But I use dehydrator and dehydrate a lot of my mushrooms for the winter. And I also pickle my mushrooms. Freeze some of my mushrooms.
Dude, a pickled mushroom sounds awesome.
Yeah, pickles are really good. There's a lot of cool European recipes for pickled mushrooms.
Nice.
Salted and pickled and different things. And then sometimes you can do like duxelle. You're like chopping them up really small, cooking them down, and then you can freeze them in little packs so that you can just like throw in some mushroom into your meal. And then some mushrooms last a long time in the fridge, so I put them in brown paper bags, like a sandwich, old school lunch bag, and then they can stay in the fridge for like a lobster mushroom will last for like 2 weeks or so in the fridge like that.
Nice.
If your humidity control is okay, and they're nice and fresh. So some you can just hang on to for a long time, just like that.
Nice.
But
have you ever played with a freeze dryer? Like, I wonder what a mushroom's gonna do in there. Is it gonna?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, puff up and get weird, and like
it might.
That could be like some cool like gastronomic textures with the freeze dried mushroom.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be fun to play around with it. Yeah. I think they're quite expensive though. I don't know.
They're a little pricey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a few people with one, so I'll ask them to freeze dry a mushroom for me and see how it comes out.
I'd like to know. I imagine they'd be kind of like, I don't know.
Surely it's not going to be horrible. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think like what puffs up and gets weird, like candy, like stuff that has air pockets built into it.
Yeah.
But like, I guess the mushroom is going to have some air pocket. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll have to do some testing.
Yes. Well, I feel like we've covered mushrooms like maybe as good as we might cover it for a show like the Okayest Cook. What other plants are you looking for when you're out there? Because like I'm familiar with ramps and like some wild onion type things, but like what else are you out there picking?
It's all seasonal. So the ramps come up in the spring. Then in the summer you have like early spring's good for greens. You have like your ramps. You have stinging nettle, which I harvest a lot with gloves. And stinging nettle's great.
People eating that, but
it's so good. It's super nutritional and healthy. It's better than spinach, I would say. You can just cook it like spinach. You can turn it into smoothies. You can do whatever with it. So
and once you cook it, like the stinging aspect,
the stinging goes away once it's cooked. Yeah,
it's not gonna like burn all the way down your throat.
No. The first time I tried it, I had read that would happen, but it's still.
Oh no.
Yeah, you're a little trepidatious when you're dumping that down your throat for the first time. But
don't
it's fine.
It
just kills the stingers. Yeah. And then I go in the summer. I'm often going for lamb's quarters greens. It's a type of wild amaranth, and they're really tasty. Once again, just like spinach. I'll do like burdock roots and Japanese knotweed, which is kind of like a savory rhubarb.
That sounds awesome.
You know, in the summer there's all the fruits. Like I'm doing wild strawberries, wild raspberries, blackberries, black cats, all that kind of thing. And then in the fall, there's nuts and what else am I getting? There's always something kicking around.
There's a few things.
I try to add, more things every time.
Nice.
Every year I try to add a couple more new things to learn and add to my repertoire.
Super cool. So we're big fans of the show Alone over here. And one thing that I always think about every time I'm watching that show is like, I need to learn more about plants. Because like that's like the number one thing that keeps most of them alive is knowing about the local plants. And I can't help it. Like I I'm not like a doomsday prepper, but like I'm trying to, have a little bit of a plan, just in case,
Yeah, in the
you
same
never
way.
know.
Yeah.
So like in plants are 100% my weakness. I
Mhm.
just need to learn more about what I can eat. And
Yeah.
I know there's
And
things like rose hips. Are those like the curly little fiddlehead looking things? And
yeah, there's fiddleheads. Yeah, rose hips are good.
it's like I
A lot
know
of good stuff for
of
tea.
a lot of
Yeah.
things, but like I would not be confident. So
Mhm.
like whatsoever, like trying to eat these things to survive. Like it'd be horrible.
Yeah. But if you're looking into like the learning a few things for survival rather than for accentuating your weeknight meals,
Mm-hmm.
um, there are plants like the cattail, which you can eat the entire plant at different stages. That can
Not like
provide
those
you a
videos
lot.
you see of people giving them the
Or the
outdoor
corn
hot
dog.
dog,
Yeah.
the outdoor corn dog.
Yeah. Yeah. The fluffy stage isn't probably when you want to eat it.
Probably not.
But the early shoots in the spring taste a lot like cucumber. They're really good.
Really? Okay.
The roots are really starchy and full of carbs and nutrition, which would be important in a survival situation.
Yeah.
You can eat the fresh heads. You can knock the pollen off and eat that. So there's all these different parts of the plant that you can eat. And there are some other plants like that. So finding a plant like that in your region, learning all about it would do you a lot more in preparedness than learning about 30 different types of the rose hips and lavender teas and different things like that, or Labrador teas, sorry. Because those will make your life better, but they won't keep you alive, I would say.
Sure.
So there's some plants that are just like workhorses when it comes to that in the foraging world.
Nice.
But then if you're interested in just kind of going out and collecting a little bit of this and that to like add to your meals, there's just so much out there.
Let's keep it a little bit more culinary versus the survival talk for now.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
yeah, and I find like little things like spruce tips in the spring. When spruce trees are growing their new little tips, they get like bright green, for like neon green almost, and they're about the size of your top of your pinky finger. Those are delicious. They're like citrusy. You can like toss them in sugar, make like spruce sugar. You make spruce syrup. You can make spruce salt. I whip them in with like a feta cheese dip. You can do like mashed potatoes with spruce tips and spruce salt. There's like I've got a bunch of recipes on my website,
dude.
But that's such an easy one. There's spruce trees pretty much everywhere except maybe the desert. Most people can identify it very easily. You're not going to make yourself sick from it, and it's a really easy, interesting thing with like lots of really good flavor to try out. So I would say for people starting out and wanting to do something like that, something like spruce tip or stinging nettle or something like that, it's a great place to start.
Nice.
Stinging nettle is great because you can't mistake it either, because all you got to do is touch it and you know damn well that it's stinging nettle.
This thing just hurt me. Let's eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've definitely seen some of that around, so I might have to be bold and give that a go.
Yeah. And a lot of these things are wild, so they haven't had the nutrition bred out of them over centuries like a lot of our domestic vegetables. They're also prey to insect and animal attacks, so that generally increases the nutrition of things as plants are fighting it back against insects. They'll often change their nutrition a little bit. So they talk about spinach being such a powerhouse of nutrition, but nettle is even more so. Wild plants are even more so. So if you're into the nutritional side of things, there's that. If you're into the flavor side of things, like you're discovering flavors that you can't find from the grocery store.
Yeah.
And you can really add an interesting new depth to your food by using these wild ingredients. It's great for your health in other ways too, because it gets you outside. Like I've spent so much more time outside because I have these goals of finding things, you know. Yes. So I'm like, I'll go out for a half-hour walk and I'll show up 3 hours later with my hat full of berries and
Well, yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. Yeah, you're feeding yourself.
Yeah.
But you're also like outside getting vitamin D. You're outside getting exercise. So it's just it's a win-win-win all around.
Exactly. Awesome. It's win everywhere. And yeah, I wish more people would. You don't have to like become like a person like from alone subsisting out there, you know, and that's the message I want to really get across is you can just learn to forage 3 or 4 things and then do that every year.
You can dabble.
Yeah, like a lot of Middle Eastern Greek people will forage wild grape leaves to make like tomates with, you know, those rolled grape leaf things. But yeah, you see them like out in the summer, like collecting, and if you do that and spruce tips and something else, like you're already adding those new flavors to your diet, more health, and you're getting out there and like that's foraging. You're a forager now.
Yes.
You don't have to be this kind of hippie, wearing a loincloth, scampering around the woods. Like you can,
you can if you want to, but you don't need to.
You can if you want. I'll be out there doing that, but you can just go to your, like a nearby park or your backyard.
Yeah.
Just make sure there's no dog crap or pesticides on it.
Yes.
And you're probably good to go.
If your white shoes turn orange when you're out running around looking for stuff, maybe go somewhere else. Well, dude, back on the easy to find plants that are absolutely everywhere. Do you do much with the dandelion?
Yep. Yeah. Every spring.
A colleague of yours, Ricky, I've got to talk with her in the pipeline about dandelion jelly that she just made. So really curious about that. But I've always heard you can do like dandelion green salads, and I've nibbled on them in the yard, and they've always been kind of bad. But I think I just need to find them earlier when they're not quite so bitter.
So dandelions tend to get more and more bitter throughout the year. So the best time to pick them is either first thing in the spring when they first emerge into the lawn, or potentially after the first frost in the fall. Frosts tend to make vegetables sweeter because the sugars kind of react to it. So, and the same goes for kale and everything in your garden too. Like everything will be sweeter after a first frost if it can be harder enough to withstand it.
Nice, yeah.
But I generally eat dandelion greens first thing in the spring. They're one of the first things to come up. I let them grow, and I don't let them flower, or like I find the ones that don't have the flower heads growing yet.
Sure.
Because once the flower grows, it also gets more bitter. So around that time of year for a few weeks, you can harvest an endless amount of dandelion greens like that, and they're a lot sweeter. They do have a bit of a bracing bitterness, but not quite as bitter as probably what you experience later on in the year.
Sure.
And I find to counteract that bitterness, like a sharp vinegar, maybe egg or bacon. So like a salad niçoise or not niçoise, lyonnaise, I think. It's like a like a bacon vinaigrette. You can also cook them like pot herbs kind of thing. And I find them so delicious. They're also super nutritious, really good. Yeah. And then before the flowers come out, they have these little tiny balls, like the unfurled unfurled flowers, like a tight ball.
Yeah.
You can pickle those and turn them into capers.
Oh, no
so you can
way.
have like dandelion capers.
Dude, love some capers, but dandelion capers, that sounds awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really different, really cool. So you can pick all the little tiny, like really tight unfurled heads.
So if you see yellow, you've waited too long. But just
for those, yeah. But if you see yellow, then you can make dandelion jam, or jelly, which Justin and I often call like sunshine jelly because it's bright yellow and it just tastes like summer. Is so good. So that's really cool to do. You can dig the roots up, especially after first frost, and you can roast them and have like a dandelion tea or coffee kind of thing. Okay. You can also, if you find like larger, tender ones, often I'll let a dandelion grow in my garden, like in my vegetable garden, because the soil is so loose and deep. They'll just grow a really massive taproot that's nice and tender. And then I pull the whole taproot out, which is pretty hard to do in a compacted lawn or something. Oh, yeah. And then you can peel that and cook it up like a carrot.
Oh, geez.
Or chop it up into something like that. It's earthy. It tastes a little different.
Dude, that's awesome.
So that's all you can do with just the dandelion, which grows in your backyard for sure. Like there's dandelions all over the place.
We've got a couple.
Yeah. So
it's super cool.
Yeah. So there's so much you can do with these plants at different stages, different times of year. And most people can identify dandelion.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were really brought over for food. The reason we have dandelions here, they're invasive species that have naturalized themselves, but people brought them over because they're such a good food source.
Really?
And then we've forgotten, and now they're just a weed.
Seriously? Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Dude, that's nuts.
So people are like spending all this money to grow their vegetables, pulling out all the weeds that people originally brought over to eat. So it's kind of a funny thing.
Yeah, I've talked a lot about Jason on this episode, but you should give him a follow. I think you'd really enjoy some of his content. Yeah. Jason Michael Thomas, I think he'll pop right up. But he has essentially replaced his grass with just everything that either he can eat or food that his bees can eat.
Yeah.
So he's 100% just replacing everything that's just, it's here because we like the look of it with stuff that serves an actual real purpose. And it's awesome. I love it. But
yeah, it's
I wish my HOA was on board with stuff like that. So all the
Yeah,
more reason to move into the country.
There's a weird cultural apprehension about doing that kind of thing with HOAs, with municipal bylaws, with laws in parks, and just a general cultural thing in North America. You don't find that in Europe, where like foraging is very normal and common.
Yeah.
In China, foraging is very normal and common. In Japan is common. But here, it's like people turn their nose up. It's like something, I don't know if something poor people do or something that they just want nothing to do with it. It looks ugly. It looks untidy.
Well, it's weird. It's dirty. It's weird. Yeah, you're going out in the woods and eating what you find there. Like, ugh.
Yeah, or growing a mess in your front lawn rather than a nice, perfect, manicured, pesticide-laden lawn.
Super toxic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's a cultural push against it, but I think there's more and more and more people who are interested in it, and getting in. There's things like the Black Forager on Instagram who has got a lot of attention, and rightfully so. She's awesome. There's
what was her name again?
Black Forager.
Okay.
So she covers kind of the vegan side of things, which is very different than what I do, but it's very respectable too. And
they make good sides.
Yeah.
Vegan dishes.
And then you have people in the hunting world who are starting to open up to the possibilities of foraging as well. And
because we need sides. We need good sides, and you're already outside, so you might as well poke around.
You're there. And at Harvesting Nature, we kind of have a motto: never go home empty-handed.
Love it.
If you go out for turkey and it didn't work out for you that day, you can probably come home with a pheasantback or morel or something, or a handful of something, some nettle or some rams.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah, exactly.
So turkey season, I did not hear a single gobble. It was so frustrating. But I got a ton of rams. I got a couple morels.
Yeah. So you're happier than you would have just gone home.
Happier than I would have been, without the foraging.
Exactly. It's a consolation prize, maybe, but
it is,
yeah.
Dude, super cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're running a little bit low on time. Really appreciate your knowledge. Super, super fun. I know you've got a ton of recipes on your website. Do you have like foraging type stuff on your website?
Yeah. I have some videos, a couple like how-to videos. I have I have just a whole wild edibles and a different wild mushrooms drop-down bar for recipes. I have probably like 300, 400 wild recipes on there.
Awesome. Yes.
So yeah, it's a good resource. Some other really good resources are Harvesting Nature, Hank Shaw, Alan Burgo. I would say you can't go wrong with any of that. And check it out and see and try. Just try adding a little bit. Take baby steps and adding a little bit and see how you like it.
Well, I love earlier on in the conversation you mentioned, the wild domestic combo. And it's almost like surf and turf in my mind. So it's like, you're just getting a little bit of both, like the best of both worlds here. And
yeah, exactly. You don't need to go dive into it. You can step in and see what you think.
Start small. Dude, my goals are going to be the dandelion capers. Like those sound so awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're cool. Definitely cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, absolutely go over to the intrepideater.com for more of these awesome recipes. Also, harvestingnature.com. You're a big contributor there. And 100% follow on Instagram. It's Intrepid Eater. Pretty much the Intrepid Eater, right? If you just Google that, like it will pop up. You'll probably be the only one that pops up, right? So
I'm also the only Adam Berkelmans apparently in the world so far. So
the only one in the world? Nice.
I think so. So yeah, you can just type that into and find me anywhere.
You guys mentioned that on the Harvesting Nature podcast recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I think Justin Googled it after I made that claim. So
he confirmed.
Apparently I was still right.
Yeah, there's not too many Whonsetlers out there either, so I might be in my own boat as well. So, well, dude, I really appreciate you hopping on again. Again, the wealth of knowledge is super. It's super intimidating, but also super approachable. It's like the fact that you did this like with zero training, is awesome. Like it's just your own grit your desire to learn, just to go to the library, to dive in head first and just learn what's out there that can sustain you and make awesome meals. So like super excited, on top of the intimidation. So it's a lot to learn. So, but baby steps, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Follow your stomach and it will lead you into fun places.
Yes. Awesome. Well, do you want to close us off with a recipe? Do you mind sharing that seared chicken recipe?
Sure. Would you like to go over the chicken thigh with hedgehog mushroom sauce recipe?
Yeah, that'd be awesome if you don't mind sharing it. Obviously, we can see it on your website. So if you don't feel like, if you're in the truck and you can't write down the recipe right now, just go to the Intrepid Eater and search. What do we search for?
You can just search for hedgehog mushrooms, but it's also the very first thing you'll see on when you open the website. Nice. So it's the last one I did.
If you're listening to this live,
if you're listening to live,
early October, yes.
So basically all I did, I took chicken thighs, and the best thing you can do with chicken thighs is pan roast them, and it just creates this like super crispy skin, just beautiful tender meat. It's the best thing to do with them, in my opinion anyways. So to do so, I preheated the oven to about 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Added you can add oil or lard or whatever your cooking medium is to a cast iron or a stainless steel pan, and those work best for searing. Start that over medium heat. Season the chicken thighs generally, and I'm doing skin on bone in chicken thighs. Season them generously with salt, pepper, and I used herb de Provence, but you could use like Italian seasoning or whatever your favorite one is. Add it skin side down to the pan on medium heat and just cook for 10 to 15 minutes. And you want that skin to be like super rich and brown and crusty and crispy and beautiful. Get that Maillard reaction really working hard there. Flip the thighs and transfer everything to the oven. And then I use the meat thermometer to check for 165 degrees Fahrenheit where it's safe. That should take about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of your thighs. I remove the thighs to a plate to rest for about 10 minutes. Transfer the fat and juices out, leaving just a little bit in. You can save the fat and juices for like to make rice or something else.
Yes, please do.
I always save it for another purpose. Increase the heat to medium high. I use hedgehog mushrooms, but like I said, you could do chanterelles or cremini or whatever you want. Oyster mushrooms.
Nice.
Add the mushrooms and cook until all the juices evaporate. And the mushrooms start to brown, which should take about 5 to 8 minutes. Add some garlic, cook for about a minute. And then we're going to deglaze the pan with, I use sherry, but you could use wine or vermouth or even stock if you don't drink, if you don't want any alcohol in there.
Sure.
So you just pour a little bit in, scrape up.
It's all going to burn off anyways, right?
Yeah, the alcohol kind of goes away anyways.
If you don't need the bottle in your pantry. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So scrape up the bottom of the pan, any bits that got stuck. Cook until the alcohol mostly evaporates. And then I'm going to add about half a cup of chicken or mushroom stock. Homemade if you can, it's always better. About a cup of half and half for heavy cream. Do you use half and half in the States? Is that a thing that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
okay. Yep. Sometimes I say Canadian things and people don't know what the hell I'm talking about. A little bit more of the herbs and some Dijon mustard. You bring that to a strong simmer, whisking, cook until the liquid reduces to like a nice clinging silky sauce. Take off the heat and stir in some Parmesan cheese just for a little extra umami. You could also stir in some butter if you want it extra rich at this point. Depends if you're watching your waistline or not.
We're
and then
fans.
Here's the thing. You'll be tempted to put the chicken on a plate and drizzle the sauce all over, but you work so hard getting that crispy skin.
Yes.
You don't want to make it all soggy. So what I like to do is put the sauce on the bottom of the plate, put the chicken on top of it. That way you get the sauce, you get it with every bite, but you still maintain that super crunchy chicken skin. And then a little garnish of like chopped parsley or chives or some green onions, something like that will never be amiss. And there you have a beautiful meal. Serve it with a little bit of vegetables if you want. And you can't go wrong. It's absolutely delicious.
Dude, it sounds phenomenal. We're nowhere close to dinner time where I'm at right now, but like I want to do this real bad.
Yeah.
But no,
100. Salivating just talking about it.
Right. Well, just looking at your pictures on your website too are making me salivate too. But yeah, 100% agree with that chicken skin. Like get it crispy. Like you're gonna love just that texture change, from the soft meat to the
it's
crispy
so
skin and that
And
creamy
so
sauce. Oh my gosh.
so easy too. And this whole thing probably took half an hour.
Nice.
So it's like it makes for a really good weeknight meal too. You're spending 3 hours in the kitchen or something like that.
Yeah.
There's minimal chopping.
It's super approachable. Like, who doesn't like chicken? Come on.
Yeah, everyone likes chicken. And if you don't love mushrooms, maybe if you hate mushrooms, I wouldn't recommend this. But even if you don't love mushrooms,
Sure.
if you had mushrooms a few times, you don't love them, maybe give this one a shot because it might change what you think about them too. Andrew
Zimmern, his big thing is like, if you don't like it, you got to keep trying. Like, try it twice, try it 3 times.
Exactly.
Maybe you messed up the recipe this time. Maybe it wasn't peak freshness that second time. Keep trying it.
Yeah.
Your taste buds change. Keep trying it. Awesome. Well, Adam, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. Again, go to the Intrepid Eater everywhere. Check them out. Go to Harvesting Nature. Check them out. Awesome knowledge. Again, the website's just chock full of so much goodness. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you, sir. And just, keep trucking. Keep impressing us.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.